Welcome, guys, to another episode. We are going to go over our surprise wildcards. We've got some injury-scuppered wildcards. We have an apology to make, and there's a runaway leader in the fantasy league. Who is it? Coming up.
But then it's like, do you transfer them out just to transfer them in back when they have the double game week? Or you just end up taking that, and that's a hard thing.
And it depends where that double goes. Does it come forward? Because if it comes forward, you take him, take the points, and go. But if he goes back, then it's tricky, and then it's two do you hold? And I think you probably hold maybe one from each. Maybe get rid of Bournemouth at that point.
Not liking Arsenal's current clean sheet potential. The Everton thing did throw me off, although that was a penalty. So does that mean Arsenal's not a good defense anymore? No. But without Gabriel, and they've got a few injuries, are they more compromised? Yes, they are.
So the Champions League's kind of what they've got left. But the first leg will give you a good indication as to what they're going to do. But Arsenal still on a good day can rock up and do some damage. So we've seen them without Saka win games convincingly. So it's a bit of a weird. So I just decided to bench Kluivert and Gabriel, leaving just Gvardiol on the bench. And I don't know how it happens, but I've only got one player on the bench, and I've still benched 9 points. I just can't calculate this stuff.
Hey team, welcome to another episode of Two Friends. I'm in a different location again. This is becoming a recurring thing, isn't it? I'm just going to be around the place. Currently getting my office renovated. It's turning into a bedroom, so I'm on the laptop. But anyway, welcome. Sam, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Quick apology. I think we need to issue. We missed a deadline in there. I think with your house move, little children all around, that one snuck up on us. We completely missed it. We apologize. But we've got a big review for you coming up. Big preview. Stuff has happened for both of us in the last couple of weeks. Chips have been played. Decisions made. How has that worked out? Andy, let's get straight into it. Gameweek 30. How did you go?
Let's go. Do my screen share, but pretty terrible. My last few game weeks have not been great. It feels like if I just never wildcarded, my team would actually be doing so much better, which I think is the case for a few people out there. So I got 45 points in my wildcard game week 30 team.
Mm-hmm.
Average points was 44. So this is probably one of my worst game weeks to date. Gabriel getting injured, although they didn't keep a clean sheet, so not too much of a big issue. Munoz with a blank. Hoyson with 0, Gvardiol with 6, Saka with 8, who came on for a cameo go. That was cool. Sarr with 2, Salah with 6 with the captaincy armband, Isaac with 8, Mateta with 1, and Marmoush with 9. This game week, I didn't captain Marmoush, so that really punished me. And also, game week 30 was interesting. A lot of the results I did not expect. So game week 30... the results were Crystal Palace 1-1 to Southampton. I think everyone we spoke to thought Crystal Palace was going to demolish Southampton, and that just wasn't the case. So, yeah, it wasn't the best game week, but that was game week 30, and I rolled that straight into 31. And 31, it's like all my scores have been in the 40s. So 45 for 30, 41 for 31. Game week 31, and I did a neg 4 as well because I had a few injury concerns. I had both my injuries that I was carrying forward from the previous game week was Kluivert and also Gabriel. So I wanted to move to another Arsenal defender, Saliba, which didn't actually work out very well because they conceded a goal to Everton out of all teams. I was just really surprised about that. So that was a double clean sheet loss. And I brought in Elanga because my thinking was this. My thinking was with Chris Wood injured, the main goal scorers for the team, for Forest, I reckon would be defenders, like your Milenkovic's and also Elanga. So that's why I brought in Elanga thinking, you know what, I think he'll be a pretty cool differential. What happens? He plays half the game and is injured. Saka with 1 point, Salah with 2, Sarr with 2, Mateta with 6, Marmoush with 2. I had Isaac as captain, and I thought, you know what? There's a good chance here. So I woke up to 3 goals from Newcastle Isaac had absolutely no take in any of them. So I think I'm just in that period where I'm losing those coin flips because you're going to get lucky sometimes and win those coin flips, and on another day Isaac's involved in all of the goals, and as a captaincy that would have paid off, and on in other times something like this happens. Gordon's still not playing, which that was a calculated risk I took. Let's see if he plays. I'm holding him for 32. But yeah, like that was a calculated risk. It doesn't look like it's paying off, and I benched a few points. I benched 14 points that week. So yeah, look, not great results for the last 2 weeks, and overall I'm back down to 210,000 rank, which is actually quite annoying. But you know what? We still have 7 more game weeks to go, so I'm not giving up yet.
Good. That's the way. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I, on the other hand, have had a completely flip-sided point scores to what you had. So, game week 30, I also eventually, after saying for weeks and weeks and weeks I wasn't going to do it, I did bite the bullet and I did wildcard. I think the Erling Haaland injury was the real kicker for me. That was there wasn't enough structure in my team. I was going to make a few changes anyway. I could spread that money. So the wild card happened. So this is the wild card team that I put out. Raya, it's very similar to your team, mate, to be honest. Raya with 2, Kirkez 1, Gvardiol 6, Gabriel with 1, Saka with 8, Salah 3, Sar 2, Eze 2. I captained Marmoush. I went for it and I came out with 18 points. Mateta with 1, Isak with 8. Sales with 8 on the bench, and then 0, 2, and 2 from Cliver and the 2 Newcastle boys. So 52 points, all said and done. Nice little week for me. It's another 3 points for our head-to-head league there. And then we rolled into 31. I, differing to you, decided to not make any changes. So I thought I was going to roll my transfers through and see how close I could get to the doubles before making any moves. So I just decided to bench Cliver and Gabriel, leaving just Gvardiol on the bench. And I don't know how it happens, but I've only got one player on the bench, and I've still benched 9 points. Like I just can't calculate this stuff. But anyway, I had Ray with 2, Livramento with 11 with his assist, Trippier with his 6. Those boys came in good this morning. Nice little 17 points to jump me above you for this week. Kirkez with 1, Sar 2, Saka 1, Eze with 9, Salah 4, Isak 2, Mateta 8, Marmoush with 2, Gvardiol on the bench with 9. And as you said, it's just those coin flips. It's the, I went with the 3 Crystal Palace attack. You went with 2 midfielders and a defence. I went with the defence for Newcastle. You went with the midfield attack. Like those decisions that were on the wild card are definitely the ones that have made or broken this game week. Like I was looking at a bit of a bad game week until the Newcastle boys came through. It's a good week for me, and finally feel like there's a little bit of form there. So I can hear the calls already. What does that mean for the head-to-head? Well, this is what it means for the head-to-head. There's a 12-point gap at the top.
Huge.
There's not a lot to go, but it still is surmountable if you roll some stuff through. And we haven't shared our league, our mini league, in a little bit, so I'll show you the top of that one there. So Andy is still sitting ahead. They're on 2036. Coming up behind you, 2007, and Seth 2004 coming up in third. But interestingly, that our changes of fortunes of like that gap between me and you was 101 points at one point, and that's down to 29 points there.
Yeah,
crazy.
So I think the gap started off as like 30, 40 points. I don't actually know how it dragged out to 100 points at any one stage. I think there was one period where you were having a super bad run of fixtures.
Yeah. And the game weeks I was winning by 5 or 6 points. And the game weeks that you were winning by 20, 30 points at one point.
Yeah.
Like we've got still, I don't know. Is it worrying you that the gap is now potentially a triple captain?
Not necessarily. Because even if it's a triple captain only gives you one extra set of that person's points. So if, let's just say you're triple captaining Isaac, for example, or for the double game week, as an example, right? And I'm normal double captaining Isaac. Isaac has to get 30 points by himself to surmount that, which isn't impossible in a double game week. But essentially, you're looking at 2 hat tricks. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, look, it's there, but I'm also not super concerned.
A bit of a spoiler for later. I'm not triple captaining Isaac.
Oh, okay. I'm curious who you're going to triple captain then. Yeah, very curious.
So how do you feel? What's your obviously your team got decimated a little bit by some injuries that happened with you deciding to wildcard. Some injuries probably led to that, and then after playing the wildcard, you've had some injuries. Are you set now for the next few weeks? Do you have some moves in mind, or are you just trying to build some transfers again for the blank in 34?
I think I'm on a free hit in 34. So I don't need to build any transfers for that. I'm actually considering bringing in Rodgers because I'm going to want Rodgers in 33 anyway. So whether I'd bring him in for Southampton, it doesn't seem like a bad move, especially if Alanga's injured. If Alanga's injured, then I've got a player who's just sitting there doing nothing. I may as well bring in Rodgers, who might have a better chance of goals against Southampton. Watkins is still not fully fit, and Saka, I'm just a bit worried about his minutes. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to even play Saka, right? So, for example, this week, Arsenal play Brentford, but they've also got their Champions League fixture, which I think Arteta's actually going to be focusing on that more. So the fact that Saka is fit, but he's still only playing half the game, kind of worries me a bit. And I don't know how much damage he can do in that half game. I mean, it is Saka, but Arsenal we drew to Everton, for God's sake, right? So I would almost bench Saka. I know this sounds crazy. Bench Saka against Brentford, play Rodgers against Southampton, and then play Saka in the double game week, and maybe captain Saka in the double game week.
Yeah, that makes a bit of sense, especially when bringing in Saka on the wild card was still a bit of a risk. He wasn't going to get it, and we all got quite lucky in that first week. I think you had him playing and got the 8 points. I had him come off the bench and pick up 8 points. And then I kind of was repaid this week when he got 1 point. We're not getting many minutes, but it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if Arsenal aren't going to be hitting top stride and aren't going to be putting the ball in the net, they need him to play. They need him on the pitch. But as you said, they're going to need him midweek for the Real Madrid game. That feels like a very tough game. And it feels like
they're playing him again.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like maybe the league maybe is a bit gone, especially with another loss or two. And I think that's all said and done there. So the Champions League's kind of what they've got left. But the first leg will give you a good indication as to what they're going to do. But Arsenal still on a good day can rock up and do some damage. So we've seen them without Saka win games convincingly. So it's a bit of a weird time. Like there's a few teams, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, all can rock up and win 4-0 on one day, and the next day they're like you say, drawing with Everton or losing to Wolves. So tricky one. Some risk there, and that risk it's interesting how people are going to play it. I think there's a very definite triple captain 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34 kind of template. And if we want to, I think there is some adaptations we can make to try and be a little bit different. Especially if you think of like the moves that people made this week were very template moves and they didn't really pay off. If you were one of those ones who made some different moves, you really got some ground covered this week. So it's some options coming up, and then I think maybe after 34 we might see it resolve back to a bit more template. But interesting going forward.
Yeah, what's your game plan?
I'll share my screen because I have a different plan now from what I usually talked about with all the injuries. So I haven't made any transfers yet, but this is what I'm looking at setting up with for this week. So I have gone not made transfers yet. I should make this is just my rough plan. It's Gabriel out for Bradley from Liverpool, who started again. And similar to you, I've gone Cliver out for Rodgers. This gives me another doubler in 33 and in Rodgers, and it gives me a Bradley playing Leicester. So I reckon they're playing Leicester anyway. So it's it just gives me a little bit more, playing Leicester away. So gives me another one, and my thought process is that I will not triple captain Isak this week with the Man United and the Palace games, even though they're both at home. I'm playing with the idea of bench boosting this week. So Raya at Brentford, Sales at Everton, Bradley home to West Ham, Kirkes home to Fulham, Guardiola home to Palace, Livramento with home United Palace, same for Trippier, Saka home to Brentford, Rodgers away Southampton, Eze away to City and Newcastle, Salah at home to West Ham, Sarr, same as Eze, as Mateta, Isak, Man United, Crystal Palace, and Marmoush at home to Crystal Palace. And then game week 33, I'll still have quite a bunch of doublers, and I'm looking at triple captain Saka in that too, because they're playing Bournemouth and Ipswich. And to me, Arsenal at Bournemouth and Ipswich feels like a better gamble than Isak at home to United and Palace. Like they can both put up some good defenses, and some weeks Newcastle do go in and they do really well. Some weeks they do seem to struggle. So just trying to step out of the well-trodden path, I think, this week. Not something that's massively differential, but just a little bit different to maybe pop me up the rankings a little bit. Sitting at, where am I sitting at the moment? I am, 382,000. So you're just chipping away. It's like 15,000 spots a week. So slowly going up. So this might be my differential gamble for the end of the season to try and propel up. But no decisions made. Got to wait for the Champions League fixtures to pass, because see what injury news comes out, and then go from there. But if I decide to triple captain this week, I won't make those changes. I will just hold on. And if I do decide to do the bench boost, I will make some changes, and those are probably the changes that I make.
Yeah, no, understandable. I'm torn between bench boosting 32 or 33. I think I'm leaning towards 33 at this stage, because I'm just going to have way more doublers. So my team currently looks like this, but I haven't made the transfer. So Pope in the back, Munoz, Nico Williams, and Vardio. Then Saka, Salah, Sarr, Gordon, Mateta, Marmoush, and Isak. If I did trade Elanga for Rodgers, it would actually be bringing Saka off, as crazy as that sounds, based on how they go midweek. Because if I think Saka's going to be a doubt, I would rather play Rodgers against Southampton rather than Saka. Or I end up bench boosting, because then you got Saliba versus Brentford and Hoyson versus Fulham. But I just don't think they're going to get clean sheets. I'm not liking Arsenal's current clean sheet potential. The Everton thing did throw me off, although that was a penalty. So yeah, it does that mean Arsenal's not a good defense anymore? No, but without Gabriel, and they've got a few injuries, are they more compromised? Yes, they are. So yeah, I think I would go Elanga to Rodgers. I just don't know whether I'll be playing him, and I would want to against Southampton. But if I did that, who do I play instead?
Yeah, and I think if you bring him in, you play him, because Southampton are now relegated, so they have nothing to play for. They're only playing for pride now. They are going to go down, and Villa could do with some goals to boost their goal difference, because they're in the fight for those Champions League places. So it doesn't matter if it's Rashford up top, doesn't matter if it's Watkins. You think Rodgers is going to be involved in that play. So I think if you bring him in, he gets played, and I think your call of playing him over Saka is probably reasonable. You think Rodgers is going to get 90 minutes. Again, it depends on their Champions League status as well. But you think he would get some decent minutes in that game? And, is he going to get more minutes than Saka at Brentford? I'd say probably. And are these minutes going to be more effective minutes? And I think probably as well. So, but yeah, it's a tricky one. It's it's not an
It
easy
also
swap,
depends
is
on, I
it?
think,
Especially when Saka
what,
could play 90 minutes and score 3 goals.
yeah, that's the thing, right? And I think it also depends on what I think Gordon's going to do. If I think Gordon's still out and he's just going to come on for like small cameos, then I might just play Rodgers instead of Gordon. And then the Gordon transfer just wasn't the best call, which, it is what it is. But yeah, I just don't know which way to lean right now. And I think I need more information.
Yeah, I think this week's not a week to make an early decision. It's a week to see what happens. We're getting to the tail end of the season. We're getting towards the part where they've played 30 games in the Premier League. They've played what played Champions League now, like 10 to 12 games in the Champions League. Some teams have played 4 or 5 in the FA Cup, 4 or 5 in the League Cup. So some teams are at 60 odd games. So this is when the injuries are going to creep in. This is when your muscle strains and all those like things are going to come in. Look at what's happening with the Isak missing games and Gabriel now, Haaland, Gordon, Trent. A lot of the big players who we know have got fitness for days are going down. So there's not the time to be making quick and early decisions. Definitely one to hold off on. But interesting that we are still, it's 38 weeks in and we're still not that different with our team structures, and our plans are not far off being quite similar, even though you're very much still a price don't watch or statistic based, and I do a lot of watching the games. Like it's does that say that you're good at reading the prices? Does it say that I'm good at reading the games? I don't really know, but
I reckon you're definitely good at reading the games. That's the crazy thing I realized when we first played the last season, and that you just didn't follow prices much at all, and that blew my mind. And I was like, "What? Like, I only followed prices. I never even watched a single game, right?"
Yeah.
Which sometimes it did to my detriment. Like, for example, Gordon, I didn't know was actually injured. I thought he was just suspended.
Yeah.
Right, and just like not knowing anything about players and games and things like that, probably this is where it does come to the detriment a bit. And with the pricing, it's like we're in this period where premiums aren't firing, so that's the downside of playing the price game. Is like the premiums don't fire. That's your edge gone.
Yeah, and this is a weird one because, like you said, you've been playing the price game. You've built all this money. I'm sitting at like 108 team value as well, and I've got 3 million in the bank because there's just no one to stretch to. And with Haaland looking like he's going to be out for a few more weeks yet, do you want to bring him back in for 37, 38, or do you just risk going with someone else? Like,
that's the thing.
It's a strategy that's kind of been a bit destroyed by the amount of injuries that we've had. Like for large periods of this season, we've had the most expensive defender being Trent being out, Gvardiol's been out for a bit, Gabriel's been out for a little bit,
Haaland, Saka,
Haaland's been out,
Palmer.
Saka. It's just it goes on and on. So, and they've all been out at different times. So we've been able to have 2 of the most expensive ones. The only real time that we struggled was in the first couple of weeks of the season when we had Palmer, we had Haaland, we had Salah, Saka, and then slowly one wasn't firing and one is, so it's just been very template since then. But it's been up to this point still quite interesting to see the span of the teams, and even still we see teams that have like hung on to Palmer and they haven't gone to Saka yet, and people who've held Haaland because they think he's going to come back, but we know Pep and we know what happened last year where he was going to be out for 1 or 2 weeks and he was out for 6 to 8. So yeah, it's good. And the next few weeks with all those chips coming into play, being played, all the assistant managers that aren't in play getting played, could change the landscape of our mini leagues just very, very quickly. So it's time to be watchful, watching, waiting, listening, watching, waiting, and then going from there. So it's. Are you at all feeling that if you're still hanging at the 200,000 with a couple of games to go, are you happy with the 200,000, or would you make a bit of a play to try and push that back up again?
Nah, I'm pretty happy with the 200,000. Like, I think, what did I set out to be? I set out to beat my last year's score, and I think it was 200 something thousand. So if I could beat that still, because that's what my goal was always. Because if I look at, like, for me, other than doing this podcast, this vidcast, this is it's a low time input, energy input. So I'm just also tempering my outcome with that. Like, if this is something which I like put a lot of time into, then I'm like, okay, now let's gun for a top 50k. But that being said, of course, yeah, I would like to. But will I make any drastic moves? I'll be honest, I wouldn't even know what drastic moves to make. Because mainly because I don't follow the games enough to be like, oh, here's a hot player which no one else knows about. Because I would normally be the last person to get that information because I don't know about those players.
So I'll tell you this. So the way that I've set up my team and the way that I've got my transfers done, I'm looking at playing the free hit in 34, so I don't have to make wholesale changes. That means that the 36 blank will probably just be taken on the chin. Like, I probably won't have a full 11 for that one. Because even the best outcome for me is that I think it's Forest and Palace get to the final. Because if City gets to the final, then I've lost they lose 2 games because you lose the Bournemouth game and the City game. So that's going to be hard to get around. But I'm looking at keeping those transfers towards the last couple of weeks of the season. And if we get to the end and I'm still trailing you in overall points, there will be some wholesale changes for targeting the 3 relegated teams to try and jump that gap. If it gets towards the end and you're limping in the lead or we're level, are you aiming for overall, or are you aiming for the win to keep it, to make it 2-0, or are you gonna be happy to concede to 1-1?
Whoa. I don't know. I want to try and aim for like winning the league still. I've spent most of the season as number 1, so it'd be cool definitely to win that. Yeah, definitely would be aiming for it. But like we were saying in the chats, right? If you do win this year, then that means next year's a tiebreaker, which will be making it really exciting.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Andy, is over the next few weeks you're just gonna ditch your team and dead end it to nothing, so that we can have a nice little competitive
Mate,
and interacting podcast next year.
You wouldn't want to win like that.
That's true.
Right?
Very true.
You wouldn't want to win like that. You would want to win with some stiff competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the last few weeks have been exhilarating for me when I get up and see the scores, and I know I've clawed back 10 points again, clawed back 20 points. So look, if we can get to that blank and edge through the blank, and we're somewhat level, those last few weeks are going to be killer.
Yeah, well, because if there's blanks, that means there's more double game weeks, right?
Yeah, potentially 1. So the ones that blank, so whoever gets to the final of the FA Cup will then
Villa may have another double game week.
Yeah. So potentially, City, Forest, Bournemouth, Villa, and some others. Crystal Palace.
So one of them or 2 teams will have a double game week.
2 teams, but if it's Man City who get through to the final, you'll have them and Bournemouth will play each other and another. So you'll have 3 teams because their fixture is the one that will be blanked out.
Right. Yeah, that could throw massive holes in the works.
Yeah. So if you get a City and a Crystal Palace final, say, I would have Mateta, Eze, Sarr, Marmoush, Gvardiol, and at present Kluivert all out for that one game. Yeah. So
that's huge. But then it's like, do you transfer them out just to transfer them in back when they have the double game week? Or you just end up taking that, and that's a hard thing.
And it depends where that double goes. Does it come forward? Because if it comes forward, you take him 10 points and go. But Correct. If it goes back, then it's tricky, and then it's 2 do you hold? And I think you probably hold maybe 1 from each. maybe get rid of Bournemouth at that point. But yeah,
And depends on how many free transfers you have.
yeah, well, exactly. So that's why you kind of have to be a little bit mindful going forward that we are making sure you do have an eye on injuries, an eye on blanks, an eye on teams who are playing Leicester, Southampton, probably Ipswich as they get relegated, because you could pick up some points from, you might get a West Ham playing them. Like, I'm not sure what the actual fixtures are for the end of the season, but if you've got a team who needs some goals and they're playing a relegated team, they're going to go for it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, let's see how this week goes. Okay, when's the cutoff? Because I missed it last week. 7:30, Saturday the 12th.
Yeah, times change.
Okay. That's right. Our daylight savings.
So we've had daylight savings start there and end here, so we've kind of gone back. So the 11 o'clock game is now a 9 o'clock game. So that's pulled the deadline forward quite a lot. So it's good for those of us who like to watch them live, but it's not as good for us who miss the deadlines.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, does that feel early? But yeah, no. Anyway, regardless, EPL is back every week. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Sprint to the finish, my friend.
All right. Best of luck.
You too, mate. See you guys.